There's been a lot of talk recently about a new Smash game coming to Switch 2, and I just wanted to give my thoughts about that and what it would be like. So Smash Ultimate was by far the biggest Smash game. I mean, every Smash game is when it comes out, but Ultimate has something like 90 characters, like a ridiculous amount of stages, just so much content, and is either the best or second best mechanically, depending on how you feel about Melee. It was also one of their best-selling games on the Switch. Of course, on the Wii U, Smash Wii U was one of the best-selling games. It's always typically one of the best-selling games on their respective consoles, so I don't think it would make sense for Nintendo to just stop making the series. I think if they wanted to make a port, they probably would be announcing that like sometime soon. So I won't act like that's impossible, but also you gotta remember Smash Ultimate has been out for almost 7 years at this point. I think fans would be pretty disappointed if after all that time, let's say next year we got an announcement of just an Ultimate port that just has upgraded graphics, like maybe an additional fighter or some stages, because Nintendo has had all this time to work on a new game. I know Sakurai has been busy recently, I know he's been working on Kirby Air Riders, but it's not just him working on it. I'm sure that a new Smash game is in development. I'm sure he's playing a big part in it, like he's most likely working on both projects simultaneously, because we know Sakurai like almost never gives himself a break. And typically Smash games come out within the first couple years of each console. Like look on the Wii U, it came out in 2014, the Wii U came out in 2012, so first couple of years. Brawl came out in 2008, which was a couple years after the Wii launched in 2006. Ultimate came out in 2018, about a year and a half or a little more than a year and a half after the Switch launched. So if I had to guess, I think we'd get Ultimate either late next year or maybe early 2027. But what would this game be like? Because it's hard to improve upon 90 fighters and I don't know, like 100 plus stages, however many. They would have to rework all the characters. I think there's probably a way that they could reuse a lot of that, but I'm sure they also have to do a lot from scratch, probably most of it from scratch to make it work and with the new mechanics. So that's a lot of work, but luckily they've had plenty of time and they probably still have a lot more time. But how many characters are going to be in this game? I can't see them removing characters unless it's for licensing reasons, because the whole marketing appeal of Smash Ultimate was that every character was returning. So I don't know why they would go back on that. Like obviously there's a lot of third-party characters. I don't know how their licensing deals work there. I'm sure if they really want to, they can keep all them. But there's a lot more characters they could add. It's been 7 years. Nintendo has done a lot since then. There's of course plenty of classic characters. They've done a lot more with third-party characters, so I'm sure they'd be willing to do something there. And the gaming landscape has changed a lot in that time. 2018 was around the time that console exclusives weren't going extinct yet, but especially Microsoft really didn't have many at that point. Like now they're publishing their games to PlayStation, Nintendo, PC. And now even Sony's doing a lot of the same. So that just opens up a lot more characters, a lot more willingness to have third-party characters. There's been new Fire Emblem games, new Mario games, new Zelda games, and those are some of the series that Nintendo loves to add characters from the most. So if I had to guess, I think Nintendo would probably have something like 110, 115 characters. I don't think anyone would be too angry about them only adding 20 or 25 characters. I forgot exactly what the jump was from Wii U to Ultimate. I think it actually might have been less, so 2025 may even be too many. But of course there was like 10 or 11 DLC fighters, and I don't see why Nintendo wouldn't do the same thing for that. Like they would probably end up having something like 130, 135 characters when it's done. And that's just a ridiculous roster, but I think it's the direction we're headed in. Of course they would have a bunch more maps, new modes, and one thing I really want to return, and I think most Smash fans want, would be like a new subspace emissary. Brawl may not be popular with competitive players, but I think most people love Subspace Emissary. Like, yeah, we got a story mode in Ultimate, but it wasn't the best. Like it kind of felt like an afterthought, where Subspace Emissary felt like an actual campaign. I would just love to get something like that, and there's so much more they can do with all these characters. Like, it's obviously going to be the biggest Smash game ever, and it's crazy to think that next year it's going to be 8 years since Ultimate's come out, so I could definitely see this game coming out next year. Like, let's say they started working on it in like 2020. That would give them 6 years to work on the game. And yeah, that might be early. I'm sure that they've had access to the Switch 2 infrastructure for a lot longer. Like, it's not uncommon for games to start development like years before a new console comes out. And another thing, I don't know if this is necessarily a reason to say it's definitely happening, but Nintendo has gotten a lot more involved with making Amiibo. Like, they're making a lot more than they have in previous years, where it was kind of falling off. And they're charging a lot for them. Like, some of these Amiibo are $40, but they are much more detailed. I'll give them credit for that. And you may remember that the game that started Amiibo was Smash Wii U, all the way back in 2014 now. Like, they made an amiibo for every single fighter. And obviously they didn't need to re-release the old ones. As Ultimate came out, they released ones for the new fighters, for the DLC fighters, and that was one of the most genius marketing moves from Nintendo. Like, instead of just unlocking digital characters, you actually get like a physical figure if you want to get that. And with them potentially making a new Smash game, I'm sure that they would be more than happy to make some $40 amiibo to make some money from. Would they make new ones of existing amiibo? I don't know, maybe they would do some variations, but I think that would definitely play into it. I actually like the amiibo mode in Wii U where you'd actually train your own fighter. Like, I thought that was a really cool mode. I'd love to see that return. I'd love for the online to be improved. Like, it was very clunky in, I guess it was in Brawl, and that was the clunkiest, but Wii U and 3DS made an improvement. Ultimate obviously made an improvement, but there were still issues. Like, there was like the battle arena with like the weird voice chat where you needed your phone connected. With Elite Smash, like, they never really made it clear what it is, like what your global Smash power had to be. I don't think they would do this just because we saw in Mario Kart World that they're still way behind when it comes to online features, but I'd at least hope that maybe they have some sort of leaderboard, maybe some sort of explanation for what GSP you need. More in-depth tournaments, like there are tournaments still in Smash Ultimate, but a lot of them are just like 16 fighters and there's games of 4 players with items. Like, I'd love for an improved version of that. Like, if you want to do an online tournament, like an actual online tournament for a cash prize, you need to do something on like Smash GG or something. We actually hosted one or two like 5 years ago maybe on Smash Ultimate, and it's really difficult to run because you need everyone to sign up through there, then you need to just make sure everyone's in their own matches, you need to check who wins. But imagine they added like a custom tournament mode where you could have up to 64 players, like one host, and it tells you who wins, it lets you watch games. Like, that would really do a lot for the Smash community, like for online tournaments, or at least have maybe like better tournaments, like more standardized tournaments. Like something like Rocket League, they have a bunch of tournaments a day, like you know what it's going to be, like there'll be 2s and 3s, there'll be like random modes like Heat Seeker, and it's 32 teams every time, like normal settings as long as you're playing on that. So I'd really love to get something like that. And also, I want to get to the obvious before someone comments it, and that's that yes, Nintendo would probably charge $80 for this game, plus DLC. And I think if Smash Ultimate 2, whatever it's called, is going to be the best Smash game ever, and they're actually going to repeat the quality of Ultimate and improve it, obviously I'm not happy about paying $80, but that's a game I would pay $80 for. And then DLC, it was something like $5 for a DLC fighter, it was like $20 for the pack in the past couple Smash games. I don't know how much Nintendo would charge more for just singular characters, but I've seen a lot of people complain about the DLC characters or the DLC fighters and say how it's Nintendo being greedy, and I don't really criticize Nintendo for this. I think that the way they've handled Smash DLC is fine. Like, they've had like optional like Mii Fighter skins for like less than $1. Yeah, obviously I'd prefer that to be free, but I think that's far less worse than something like $20 for a skin or like $10 for like a weapon skin in a game. Like, I remember when Sans came out in Smash Ultimate and everyone was just losing their mind. Like, you didn't actually play as Sans, but you just played as someone in a Sans costume, and it was cost like $1. And then they released Piranha Plant for free. Like, that was a completely free DLC, and all the 10 or so like additional characters, like, yes, it costs money, but it didn't feel like a cash grab either. Like, they made something like 80 fighters in the game. Like, it's not like the game was lacking in content, and then they just continued to support it with optional fighters that if you want to get them, you can. And they clearly put a lot of work and love into making these characters. Like, it doesn't feel like they rushed them. And it's something that Dead by Daylight's been doing for a while. Like, they'll add DLC survivors and killers in the game, and it's completely optional. Like, you don't have to get these characters, and it's just a way that they keep supporting it and they keep doing a lot. And a lot of these are licensed characters, so they need to be able to make some money from it, because they need to be able to pay the copyright holders. And once again, yeah, I know it sucks like to have to pay for content, you'd rather just get it, but you gotta think like from a business's perspective. Like, let's say they're trying to add a third-party character, like for example, Steve from Minecraft. They're not gonna add that for free, like once the base game is already out, like a year or two later, unless they're making money from it, because they need to pay Mojang or Microsoft to actually use that character. So in an age where Nintendo has been a lot more controversial with DLCs, like obviously Bonanza got DLC not too long after it released, and a lot of people weren't happy about that. Pokemon Legends EA got DLC announced before the game even came out. Like, that's something that I'm not a fan of. I think if they have plans to make like a full-blown DLC later on, that's one thing, like a whole new mode that makes it worth it, that wouldn't be in the base game. But I don't think anyone's going to be happy about it. I'm sure there's people commenting about how one DLC fighter is too much. And honestly, I understand that if the game's $80 and then needing to pay an additional $40 or something to complete the roster. Like, that's a lot of money. Like, I think if this was a $70 game and maybe they had an $80 edition that came with like a voucher for like a couple fighters or something, I think people would be like a little happier about that. But again, like, that's DLC announced before the game is actually out. But this is all kind of getting sidetracked. This is just something I wanted to talk about because I know it's going to be a hot topic when the next Smash inevitably announced. I truly do think we're going to get the next Smash either next year or by 2027 at the latest. That would make it 9 years, which is just like the longest gap between Smash games ever, and it's understandable considering that the Switch generation was the longest, Ultimate was the biggest Smash game, so it does make sense. But I just can't see Nintendo abandoning maybe one of their top 5 most popular series. I do think if they were just going to reuse Ultimate, we already would have got a port announced. And I could be wrong, maybe next year they come out and say, like, we're just porting this and adding a new fighter. But you know what, who knows, we'll have to see. I don't know for 100% sure that we're getting a new game soon. You don't know that we're not getting a game soon. It's all really just speculation. I just thought it'd be interesting to talk about. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and like. And let me know your thoughts on what you think the next Smash game will be. This has been Domain with Game Domain. Thank you for watching.